we all know white dudes can hoop. You know what I mean? Like, so my thing is like, what's the next point of conversation? And I think the next point of conversation is finding ways or finding things to talk about that that don't revolve around race. So like other ways that we can share our experiences with each other and share our knowledge to come together.
Calmatic, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
What's the word, man? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Listen,
good
as a
too.
guy who grew up in South LA,
Okay.
my home school was Crenshaw. I ended up going to Venice. This movie hit home for me like you wouldn't believe. I went to go revisit the original White Men Can't Jump. There's elements from the original in this, but you make it completely your own.
Oh, yeah.
Kenya Barris, he was born and raised in Inglewood. You're from South Central. This really feels like a love letter to LA. Can you talk about the collaboration process with Kenya Barris to bring this film project to life?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I think I didn't realize Kenya was from LA until one day we had a conversation and he was telling me how, you know, he grew up in the Avs. And I was like, wait, what? You grew up in the Avs? And it was like, oh, wow. Like, and I feel like ever since then it was like, all right, like I understand, you know, it made Kenya Barris make more sense to me, right? Like I totally got his perspective. And, you know, a couple months after we had our first like general meeting, he came back to me and was like, yo, I got this movie, White Men Can't Jump. And I was like, all right, let's see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? But then when I read the script and I, you know, saw the landmarks that were written in the script, whether it be like, you know, the jungles of Dorsey High and, you know, Ladera Park, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in, you know, being somebody from LA, like, I think one of the best experiences I have, or one of the things I look forward to the most being a creator is just like exposing my city to the world and just, you know, and also the real LA, right? Like the LA that we know, you know, just thinking like seeing, you know, Jack and St. Croix driving down Crenshaw, seeing West Angeles Church in the background, you know what I'm saying? Cause that's the same feeling I had watching the original. You know, you see them driving down Crenshaw and you saw the old, you know, the bowling alley, you know, that's now a Starbucks and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I get a chance to do that. I'm going to make sure that it's like something for the locals and something that we recognize. And, you know, I could have this final tournament anywhere in LA, but why not put it right in the middle of Leimert Park? Like that's the epicenter of Black LA. You know, there's no other place that deserves that more. And so, you know, I got a budget to do that, and so why not?
I mean, look, Ladera Park is literally like 3 blocks from where I grew up. So, like, I appreciate you throwing my neighborhood in there. Look, this story, the original story came from Ron Shelton, who wrote and directed the original. Can you talk about working with him and what inspired this updated version of White Men Can't Jump?
I never worked with Ron. Yeah, there's a whole, you know, thing going on with the studios and all that. But I think ultimately, I definitely drew inspiration from him. I watched a lot of his interviews about how he approached the film, and I remember he had this whole anecdote about how the first shootout that we see in the original film, like he made sure not to use any stunt doubles and not to cut. And like to see Woody actually make these 3-pointers and to see Wesley actually make these 3-pointers so that, you know, that sense of belief could like, you know, be established at the beginning of the film. And so I try to do that same thing, you know, the first time we see Kamal and Jeremy, you know, shoot those 3-pointers, you know, it wasn't, there's no stunts, you know what I'm saying? Each shot is really Jack Harlow, is really Sinqua, you know, and I think it kind of established early on that these dudes can actually hoop.
You know, that's actually leads right into my next question. Can you talk about the casting process and how important it is to have actors that actually know how to ball to make it feel real?
Yeah, man, it's funny because there was a lot of great actors that tried out and there's a lot of great basketball players that auditioned. But not all actors can hoop and all hoopers can't act. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because there were some, you know, the way they would audition and you know, acting, and then they would send in like a tape of them playing basketball. And you could just tell, like, I don't know about this tape, man. This look kind of doctored. You cut too soon out of that layup. You know what I'm saying? Or why is it only one layup? I know you got more than, you know what I'm saying? I know you can do more than that. And so when we came across St. Croix, who is born and raised in LA, you know what I mean? Like went to Beverly High School, like grew up in the Crenshaw district, played basketball. Like, you know, we had this secondhand, like, language that we kind of spoke, and I realized that he understood the character more than anybody could. Like he went to Audubon, or he used to play basketball on the weekends at Audubon. You know what I mean? So you know what that means. You know what I'm saying? And same thing with Jack. We tried to carry that on with Jack, and I think we didn't know how good he can hoop. It was kind of a question mark. And I remember the day after his audition, he played in the All-Star celebrity game, and he scored like 15 points and had like 2 deep threes and a fast break layup. I think he might have dunked. I don't think he dunked, but it was close. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, oh yeah, he's auditioning for the movie right now. You know what I'm saying? In front of the world. And so, we put them, with some basketball coaches, and they spent some time. Like Jack was doing, training in between his shows, and when he came to set, he looked like a true hooper.
I love that your impression of Jack was whether or not he could play ball, which is kind of the theme throughout the movie, right? We question whether Jack still has that skill. You know what? Something that surprised me about Jack, I didn't realize this was his first acting job like ever, and he knocks it out of the park. Talk to me about what he brought to the role of Jeremy that wasn't on the page.
Man, that's a good question. I think Jack's like his superpower is just confidence, right? I feel like after knowing him for almost a year now, I feel like he probably walks into a room and has like a checklist in his head of like how to be. And I feel like number one is like just be extremely confident. And I feel like that is how he approaches life. And so, whatever he does, whether it be music or acting, he does it as if he's the best. And that doesn't mean being like big and braggadocious. It just means like being locked in and having a certain type of focus and posture about, what you do. And, he came prepared, man. He was off book. He knew all his lines. He knew everybody else's lines, and, he delivered, man. He surprised a lot of us. I think after that first take, everybody was like, okay, let's do this. Like we got a movie, so.
I love Jack and Senqua's energy together and their chemistry. They're phenomenal together. And from what I understand, they grew a real friendship during the filming process. Did you incorporate any of those elements into their genuine friendship into the film?
Yeah, it's interesting because, we shot this film in order pretty much, right? And so I think like the first day that, they were on set was like the first time that Jeremy and Kamal meet in the film. And so, it wasn't like too method, but we kind of, had this idea to kind of keep them separate when they were like, just meeting each other, like off camera, and then as the characters got closer, they got closer off screen, and they kind of use that energy to leak into some of the scenes. And so I think by the end of the movie they were best friends. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was it played better that way versus like them being really good friends, and like the first scene they have to do is like them sizing each other up. You know what I mean? So I feel like, yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, like it definitely leaked onto the screen, but it happened in a gradual, strategic way.
There's some really emotional scenes that we get with Lance Reddick. Can you talk about working with the legendary Lance Reddick?
Yeah, man, it was amazing. It was an experience. I think as a director, and I watch my actors perform, I'm always like nitpicking and looking at small things and trying to, mold them into like a perfect actor for that moment. And when I was watching Lance, I had to like sit back because I was like, I feel like I'm a fan right now, just like watching one of my favorite shows. And whenever the scene would be over, it's my duty to go in and give notes. And sometimes I would just be like, I have no notes. That was it. You got it. Like that was perfect. Can you do it again? And try something different. And he took the note and he did something different that I didn't expect, and it was just as perfect as the first one. And so I realized quickly, like this is like the almost the pinnacle of acting that we have right here. And like he didn't have a bad take. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he's a legend, man. R.I.P.
Hey, like last question I have for you is something you guys tap into, which I really applaud you guys for, is mental wellness. Can you talk about the theme of mental wellness in the film?
Going into this film, we were like, what story can we tell? Like what aspect of human life, can we, kind of lean into on this one? And, I feel like the original film, they definitely had a little bit of backstory with the characters, but I think in this one we kind of set out to like really, push the conversation and like, really show who these people are so that we can have a more nuanced conversation about, where they're going. And just like Jack said in the film, it was like, he said something like, we all know the race thing is dated. Like, what's the like, we all know white dudes can hoop. You know what I mean? Like, so my thing is like, what's the next point of conversation? And I think the next point of conversation is finding ways or finding things to talk about that that don't revolve around race. So like other ways that we can share our experiences with each other and share our knowledge to come together. And I feel like meditation and mental wellness is one of those things. And even also just to show you all aspects of it, right? Because you got somebody like Jeremy who, meditates and is all about wellness and balance, but yeah, he's like taking pills and he's like drinking alcohol. You know what I mean? So it's just like no one's perfect. We're all trying to figure it out and we all can learn something from one another.
Calmatic, incredible film, man. I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Peace.